They want you tired, they want you distracted, they want you doubting yourself, your ability, and the very path you were meant to walk. Look around at the pace of the world today, and you will see it, not in bold, obvious letters, but in the subtle wariness on people's faces, in the restless tapping of fingers against glowing screens, in the fog that settles over minds too drained to think clearly. A tired mind is an obedient mind, a distracted mind is a harmless mind, and a doubting mind is a defeated mind. If you do not guard your attention, your energy, and your faith in yourself, the world will drain them from you piece by piece until you wake one morning wondering where your life went. It will not be taken from you in a single act. It will be eroded in small, almost invisible ways, and the truth is, for most people, that erosion has already begun. It starts innocently enough. A little extra time scrolling through headlines you will never remember. A few more minutes spent absorbing someone else's drama instead of working on your own vision. A single morning where you decide to sleep in, just this once because the fire in you feels dim, and every time you let that happen, every time you trade your focus for noise, every time you give away your mental energy to trivial things, you hand over a small piece of your personal power. No one will stop you because the world is built to encourage it. The marketplace of distraction is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are entire industries designed to keep you looking down at your phone instead of up at your horizon. You must understand this. The system does not care about your purpose. It cares about your participation on its terms. That's why so many live in a constant state of mental fatigue. Even if they're not physically tired, their thoughts are cluttered, their focus scattered. And here's the danger: when you are tired, you begin to settle. You lower your standards without realizing it. You stop demanding excellence from yourself because mediocrity feels easier. And once you start accepting mediocrity, you stop recognizing it as mediocrity. It becomes the new normal. That's the trap. You think you're making small compromises just to get through the day, but those compromises add up until you've compromised your entire life. Success in any form is impossible without clarity of thought, and clarity of thought is impossible when you are distracted, drained, and doubting your own worth. So what's the antidote? The first step is to reclaim your attention. You must become the guardian of your own mind. No one else will do it for you. If you allow every voice, every notification, every headline to pull you in a different direction, you will never hear the voice inside you that actually matters, the one that knows who you are and where you're supposed to go. The second step is to strengthen your mental endurance. Just as a runner trains his lungs and legs to endure longer distances, you must train your mind to stay steady and sharp in a world that wants it dull and restless. The third step is perhaps the most vital: rebuilding your confidence with conscious, deliberate thought. Doubt cannot coexist with belief. One will drive the other out, and the stronger you make your belief in yourself, the weaker doubt becomes until it has no power left to hold you. Now I know some will hear this and say, but the world is too chaotic. How can I possibly keep my focus when everything is moving so fast? The answer is simple. You slow yourself down. You refuse to move at the speed of panic. You create your own pace, and you choose your own direction. You may not control the wind, but you control the set of your sails. You may not decide the length of the storm, but you can decide how you'll weather it. And here is where the law of mental sovereignty comes into play. You become what you allow to take root in your mind. If you let fear and confusion plant themselves there, you will harvest nothing but fear and confusion in return. But if you plant discipline, focus, and certainty, you will reap a harvest of power and progress. Say this now, out loud if you can. I am the master of my mind, the keeper of my energy, and the builder of my destiny. Write that down. Put it where you can see it every day. The act of writing it will etch it deeper into your mind, and the act of reading it daily will keep it alive. This is not a trick. This is not a slogan. This is a law. What you repeatedly affirm becomes the reality your subconscious mind begins to accept. And once it accepts it, it will start to act on it. It will guide your choices, shape your habits, and open your eyes to opportunities you would have otherwise missed. You must remind yourself daily that your mind is not a dumping ground for the world's noise. It is a sacred space where your future is designed, refined, and brought into being. Think of your mental energy like currency. You only have so much to spend each day. You can spend it on worry, gossip, and pointless comparisons, or you can invest it in learning, creating, and advancing your goals. The first path leaves you poorer in every way. The second path compounds into a wealth no one can take from you. But here's the catch. If you don't consciously choose the second path, the first one will choose you. That is why so many feel powerless. They've surrendered their mental currency without realizing it, until there's nothing left to invest in themselves. If you want to escape that fate, you must begin every day with intention. Ask yourself, where will I direct my mind today? What will I allow to shape my thoughts? Because make no mistake, your environment will shape you if you let it. Surround yourself with people who are always tired, always distracted, always doubting, and you will start to mirror them. But put yourself in the company of those who guard their time, who protect their focus, who believe in their vision, and you will rise to match them. We are in many ways the sum of the company we keep and the ideas we entertain. If you want a stronger mind, feed it stronger influences. If you want unshakable belief, surround yourself with people and ideas that reinforce it. Every moment you spend with such influences is like adding another layer of armor to your mind. So remember this, the world may want you tired, distracted, and doubting, but it cannot force you into that state unless you allow it. You have a choice every single day, every single hour. Guard your attention as fiercely as you would guard your most valuable possession, because it is your most valuable possession. Guard your energy as if your future depends on it, because it does. And guard your belief in yourself as if it were the last light in a darkened world, because for you it might be. And when you feel the pull of distraction, the weight of fatigue, or the whisper of doubt, come back to the truth and repeat it with conviction. I am the master of my mind, the keeper of my energy, and the builder of my destiny. Distraction is not always loud. In fact, the most dangerous distractions are the quiet ones, the ones that feel harmless, even productive, while slowly steering you away from your true course. A man can lose his life's vision not by a great catastrophe, but by 1,000 small diversions, each one so slight that he never notices the drift until the shoreline is gone from sight. This is why so many wake up years later in a life they never consciously chose, because they allowed their focus to be stolen in bits and pieces, packaged as entertainment, urgency, or just checking in. If you want to rise above this, you must learn to detect distraction not by its volume but by its effect. Ask yourself, does this bring me closer to my goal, or does it pull me away? If it pulls you away even slightly, it is a thief, and you must learn to close the door to it without apology. Fatigue works the same way. It does not come all at once. It comes in layers, settling over you like dust. First, you lose your morning spark. Then you lose your afternoon drive. Before you know it, you are moving through the day with a mind that feels like it is walking uphill through mud. The tragedy is that most people accept this as normal. They do not question why they feel worn down before the day is halfway through. But understand this, chronic fatigue is not the natural state of a healthy, focused human being. It is a signal. It tells you that your energy is being spent in places that do not serve you, and that you are drawing from your reserves instead of your sources. The world is full of people who have built their schedules around obligations they resent and habits that drain them. If you do not choose your commitments carefully, you will become one of them. And then there is doubt. Doubt is the slowest poison, because it does not kill instantly. It simply weakens you a little each day, so that when opportunity knocks, you are too hesitant to open the door. Most people think doubt comes from failure, but more often it comes from inaction. When you fail while taking action, you learn, you adapt. But when you fail to act at all, you begin to tell yourself stories. Stories about why it wasn't worth trying, why you wouldn't have succeeded anyway, why people like you can't achieve things like that. These stories become beliefs, and beliefs are powerful architects. They build the ceilings over our own heads. Break through them, and you'll see there was more space above you all along. But to break through them, you must first stop feeding them. There is a law I want you to write down now, not tomorrow, not later, now. The law is this: I do not entertain thoughts that weaken me. This is not about blind optimism or ignoring reality. It is about refusing to let thoughts take root in your mind that rob you of your strength, your clarity, or your purpose. Every thought is a seed. Some seeds grow into trees that shelter you and bear fruit. Others grow into weeds that choke the life from everything you have planted. You cannot control every seed that drifts into your mind, but you can control which ones you water. Repeat the law to yourself: I do not entertain thoughts that weaken me. Feel the truth of it. See yourself living by it, and watch how it begins to shape the way you think, speak, and act. If you truly live by this law, you will notice changes almost immediately. You will find that certain conversations no longer interest you because they drain your mental energy without giving anything in return. You will become more selective with what you read, what you watch, and who you spend time with, because you recognize that your mind is not an open marketplace, it is a sanctuary. And most importantly, you will stop sabotaging yourself with the quiet, almost invisible thoughts that whisper, you can't, it's too late, or you're not ready. Those thoughts will still try to appear, but you will see them for what they are, thieves, and you will deny them entry. Now, some will resist this discipline. They will say it's too rigid, that you can't live your life constantly guarding every thought. But that is like saying you can't live your life constantly guarding your home. You don't need to guard it every moment of every day. You just need to make sure the doors and windows are closed to what doesn't belong inside. The same is true of your mind. Once you develop the habit of recognizing unhelpful thoughts, you will naturally keep them out without exhausting yourself. But it begins with a period of deliberate watchfulness. At first, it will feel like effort. Later, it will feel like strength. Consider how much energy you will have when you stop feeding doubt, stop giving attention to distractions, and stop carrying the weight of mental fatigue. That energy is not lost forever. It is still yours. It has simply been tied up in places that give you nothing back. Reclaim it, and you will discover that you are capable of far more than you believed. You will begin to see possibilities that were invisible to you before, because your vision will no longer be clouded by the fog of exhaustion and uncertainty. And here is the truth. Most of the time, it's not that you can't do something, it's that you can't see yourself doing it. Clear the fog and the path appears. And as you walk that path, you will notice something else. The world that once seemed overwhelming becomes manageable, even predictable. You will begin to see the patterns in the way people spend their days, the way they speak, the way they think, and you will see why they get the results they get. You will also see why the majority are tired, distracted, and doubting. They are playing a game they do not even realize exists, and the rules are written to keep them in place. But when you live by the law you just wrote down, you stop playing that game. You start living by a different set of rules, your own. So let it be your starting point today. I do not entertain thoughts that weaken me. Say it again, this time with the conviction of someone who understands the cost of ignoring it. This is your defense, your compass, and your foundation. Live by it, and you will not only guard your mind, you will sharpen it into a tool that cuts through confusion and leads you straight to the life you were meant to live. Once you begin guarding your mind, you will discover that strength attracts strength. The moment you stop giving your attention to weakness, you stop inviting it into your life. This is not magic, it is cause and effect. A person who refuses to entertain thoughts that weaken them begins to speak differently, stand differently, carry themselves differently. And the world notices. People who value growth will be drawn to you because your presence reinforces their own focus. People who thrive on distraction and doubt will quietly drift away because you no longer provide the audience or validation they need to sustain their habits. This natural separation is one of the clearest signs you are moving toward your potential. It is not your job to convince others to come with you. It is your job to keep walking the path with clarity, knowing that the right companions will match your pace. But here's the challenge. You will be tested. The world will not stop presenting opportunities to lose focus. In fact, once you begin to rise above distraction, it will test you even more. You may notice old habits trying to creep back in under new disguises. A quick phone check that turns into an hour, a necessary meeting that produces nothing but wasted energy. An urgent task that pulls you away from the work that actually matters. This is why you must develop not only discipline, but discernment. Discipline tells you to keep your commitments. Discernment tells you which commitments are worth keeping in the first place. Without discernment, you may be disciplined in the wrong direction. And in life, the wrong direction walked with great discipline will still lead you to the wrong destination. This is where we apply another law, one you should write down now. I direct my energy only toward what advances my purpose. Say it, write it, and let it become a filter for every decision you make. This law will simplify your life in ways you cannot imagine. Most of the stress people feel does not come from doing too little. It comes from doing too much of the wrong things. They are busy but not productive. They are active but not advancing. When you live by this law, you strip away the noise. You stop chasing everything and start building something. You stop scattering your efforts and start compounding them. The beauty of this approach is that it applies to every area of life. In your work, it means focusing on the tasks that create the greatest return, not the ones that simply fill the hours. In your relationships, it means spending time with people who inspire you to grow, not those who pull you back into old patterns. In your personal development, it means learning skills and adopting habits that align with the person you want to become, not the person you used to be. And when you truly commit to this, you will realize how much of your time and energy was once spent on things that did nothing to move you forward. Now let me address something that will happen when you live by this law. People will misunderstand you. They will call you distant, obsessed, even selfish. But understand this, the same people who benefit from your distraction will resent your focus. They will try to pull you back, not out of malice, but because your discipline challenges their comfort. You cannot live to ease their discomfort without sacrificing your own progress. Remember, you are not obligated to slow your pace to match someone else's hesitation. You are obligated to keep moving toward your purpose, and the more you do, the more you will inspire those who are ready to join you. As your focus sharpens, you will find that doubt loses its power. Doubt thrives in scattered energy. It feeds on unfinished projects, half-formed ideas, and inconsistent effort. But when you consistently direct your energy toward what advances your purpose, you build evidence for yourself. You begin to see results, even small ones, and those results become proof. Proof erases doubt, and once doubt begins to fade, your confidence grows, not as an empty affirmation, but as a grounded, unshakable certainty born from action. This is why so many fail at building belief in themselves. They try to think their way into confidence instead of acting their way into it. Another change you will notice is the way you handle setbacks. When your energy is directed by purpose, a setback is no longer a reason to quit. It is simply feedback. You see it for what it is, a correction, a signal to adjust your approach. You no longer waste energy on blaming, complaining, or questioning whether you should continue. The decision to continue was already made when you committed to your purpose. Now you simply adapt and proceed. This is a level of resilience most never reach because they have never made a deep commitment in the first place. Living by this law will also change your relationship with time. Most people treat time as something that happens to them. They talk about it slipping away, getting away from them, or running out. But when you direct your energy toward your purpose, you stop chasing time and start commanding it. You become intentional about your hours, knowing that each one invested in the right place compounds into greater progress. You understand that an hour spent in deep, focused work is worth more than 10 spent in distraction. And when you live this way, you no longer feel like life is passing you by. You feel like you are shaping it. So say it again. I direct my energy only toward what advances my purpose. Let it be the test for everything you do. Let it be the lens through which you view your commitments, your habits, and your goals. When you live by this law, you are no longer at the mercy of fatigue, distraction, and doubt. You are moving with intention. You are building with precision, and every step you take is a step closer to the life you were meant to create. When you begin to direct your energy only toward what advances your purpose, you will inevitably confront the reality of trade-offs. Every yes you give to one thing is a silent no to something else. The difference between those who achieve their vision and those who merely dream about it is that the achievers know this truth and act accordingly. They do not say yes lightly. They measure the cost. They understand that their time and energy are finite resources, and that spending them without care is no different than throwing gold coins into the wind. This is why purpose-driven living feels so different from the way most people operate. It is intentional, measured, and unafraid to let go of what doesn't belong. You cannot live a life of clarity if you are unwilling to close certain doors. But there is a trap here, and it is one that captures even disciplined people. It is the trap of the almost right choice. This is the commitment, opportunity, or project that looks like it might serve your purpose, but in truth, it only mimics the shape of what you need. These are the distractions dressed as progress. They keep you busy enough to feel productive, but they are not aligned enough to create real results. In fact, they may even drain the very energy you need for what truly matters. This is why discernment is so critical. You must learn to ask not only, is this good, but is this essential? Good things can still rob you of greatness if they are not the right things for you right now. Here we come to another law. Write it down. I choose the essential and release the rest. This is a law of focus, but also a law of courage. It takes courage to release something that is good but not great, especially when others cannot see your vision as clearly as you do. People will tell you to keep it all, to try everything, to be everywhere. But the law of the essential says otherwise. It says that true progress is made not by doing more, but by doing less of what doesn't matter. It is made by going deeper, not wider. It is made by channeling your resources into the vital few things that move the needle, rather than scattering them across the trivial many. The moment you embrace this law, you will feel resistance from both outside and within. Outside, you may face questions, criticisms, and even accusations that you are closing yourself off. Inside, you may feel the pull of old habits, the fear of missing out, the discomfort of saying no, the urge to keep every option open. But freedom is not found in keeping every option open. Freedom is found in committing to the path that matters most and refusing to dilute your efforts with anything less. The world tells you that choice is power. The truth is that disciplined choice is power. The rest is distraction. When you live by the law of the essential, you begin to notice that life becomes lighter. Your mind is less cluttered. Your schedule is less chaotic. And because your energy is no longer scattered, your results grow faster than you imagined possible. This is not because you suddenly gained more talent, but because you finally stopped leaking your potential into places that could never reward you. You will also notice that the people around you respond differently. Some will respect you more for your clarity. Others will resent you for no longer being available to their every need. This is a natural sorting process, and it will serve you well. Those who truly value you will value your time. Those who only valued your time when it was theirs to use will drift away. Another benefit of living by this law is the peace it brings. When you no longer try to hold everything, you no longer fear losing everything. You realize that the few things you have chosen are enough, more than enough, because they are aligned with your purpose. You stop chasing approval, applause, and validation for things that do not matter. And this frees you to work without the constant pressure of comparison. You are no longer running someone else's race. You are no longer building someone else's vision. You are no longer exhausted by the weight of trying to be everything to everyone. You are moving at your own pace, in your own lane, toward your own goal. But perhaps the greatest change comes in how you think about time. When you choose the essential and release the rest, you stop living reactively. You are no longer pulled in 100 directions by other people's priorities. Instead, you wake each day knowing exactly where your energy will go. There is power in this kind of simplicity. It removes hesitation, because you have already decided. It removes overwhelm because you no longer feel the need to do it all. And it removes guilt because you know that the few things you are doing are the most important things you could possibly be doing. So let this law take root in you. I choose the essential and release the rest. Say it now, with the calm certainty of someone who knows the value of their life and refuses to spend it on what doesn't matter. When you commit to this, you will not only guard your focus, you will multiply it. You will discover that less is not a limitation but a force multiplier. And in a world that wants you tired, distracted, and doubting, that is a kind of strength few will ever know. Once you have chosen the essential and released the rest, something remarkable happens. You begin to feel the full weight of your own agency. You realize that you are not merely reacting to life, you are shaping it. You see clearly that every choice you make is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming, and that the accumulation of these votes determines your future. This is the moment when many people experience an uncomfortable truth. Their life is not the result of luck, fate, or the actions of others, but of their own repeated decisions. That realization can feel heavy at first because it removes the comfort of blaming outside forces. But it also delivers a profound gift. If your choices created your current reality, then your new choices can create a new one. At this stage, discipline becomes more than a tool, it becomes your identity. You no longer practice discipline occasionally as something you switch on for a project or a season. You live it. It informs how you think, how you speak, how you act, and how you recover when you fall short. It's no longer about forcing yourself to do the right thing. It's about becoming the kind of person who does the right thing naturally, because anything less feels unnatural. This is why shallow motivation fades so quickly. It tries to push you into action without changing who you are inside, but when you adopt discipline as part of your identity, your actions follow effortlessly. And so we arrive at the next law. Write it down. I act in alignment with the person I want to become. Say it out loud. This law is the bridge between who you are today and who you will be tomorrow. It asks you to stop living as a product of your past and start living as a preview of your future. Every action you take under this law is a rehearsal for the life you are building. If you want to be wealthy, you act like someone who respects and multiplies their resources. If you want to be healthy, you act like someone who values their body enough to train and nourish it well. If you want to be respected, you act like someone whose word and conduct are worthy of respect. You do not wait until you arrive to act the part, you act the part to arrive. The power of this law lies in its immediacy. It removes the excuse of someday. Too many people live in a constant state of preparation, convincing themselves they'll start acting like the person they want to be after they've achieved certain milestones. But achievement is not the cause of identity, it is the result of it. The habits, choices, and attitudes you cultivate now are the seeds from which your future grows. Plant them with care, water them with consistency, protect them from the weeds of doubt and procrastination, and over time you will see the harvest. There will be days when acting in alignment with your future self feels unnatural. That is normal. It is the tension of growth. When you reach for a new standard, your old patterns will resist. You may hear the voice of your past self urging you to go back to what is comfortable. But remember, comfort is not the goal. Transformation is. Every time you choose the action that aligns with your future rather than your past, you weaken the hold of the old identity and strengthen the foundation of the new one. And soon the actions that once felt forced will feel natural, while the old habits will feel foreign. This is also where your environment becomes critical. You cannot consistently act like the person you want to become if you surround yourself with people and influences that reinforce the person you no longer wish to be. This does not mean you must cut ties with everyone from your past, but it does mean you must be intentional about who and what occupies your daily life. Seek out people whose habits, values, and vision align with where you are going. Fill your mind with information and inspiration that reinforces your new identity. Reduce exposure to anything that tempts you to shrink back into the old one. This is not isolation, it is cultivation. Living by this law changes the way you handle opportunities. You begin to evaluate them not just by their immediate benefit, but by whether they are congruent with your future self. You ask, would the person I want to become say yes to this? And if the answer is no, you decline, even if the opportunity looks appealing in the short term. This level of self-consistency builds an unshakable sense of trust in yourself. You no longer doubt your ability to make good choices because you have proven it to yourself repeatedly. This trust is priceless. It eliminates hesitation. It silences much of the internal debate that drains so many people of their momentum. And perhaps the most liberating effect of this law is that it frees you from the false belief that you must earn the right to live well. You stop postponing joy, confidence, and self-respect until some imaginary finish line. You give yourself permission to live in the mindset, habits, and dignity of your future self now, knowing that doing so is precisely what will make that future real. So write the law again, in bold letters, I ACT in alignment with the person I want to become. Read it every morning until it becomes second nature. The more you practice it, the more you will see that the gap between who you are and who you want to be is not a distance, it is a decision. When you act in alignment with the person you want to become, the world begins to respond to you differently. Opportunities that once seemed out of reach will appear in your path, not because the world has changed, but because you have changed. You are no longer broadcasting uncertainty, you are transmitting clarity. And clarity is magnetic. People trust those who know where they are going, they open doors for those who walk with purpose. They offer their time, resources, and support to those whose vision is steady and whose actions are consistent. This is why alignment with your future self is not merely a private discipline, it is a public signal. It tells the world without words that you are serious, and the world answers in kind. Yet here lies the paradox. You must be prepared for resistance even as support grows. The same clarity that attracts the right opportunities will also repel the wrong ones. The same confidence that draws allies will provoke envy in those who are not ready to face their own stagnation. You will notice people who once felt comfortable around you becoming uneasy, not because you have judged them, but because your growth shines a light on their inaction. This is a test of your resolve. You must learn to keep your course steady without shrinking to make others comfortable. If you slow your stride every time someone complains about your pace, you will never reach the destination you set for yourself. This is where the next law becomes critical. Write it down now. I advance without permission. This law frees you from the invisible chains of waiting for approval, waiting for validation, waiting for someone to tell you it's the right time. The truth is, no one is coming to hand you a stamped invitation to live your own life. If you keep waiting for universal agreement, you will die waiting. Advancement is a choice you make and a responsibility you own. You must be willing to take steps forward even when the people around you do not yet understand where you are headed. In time, your results will speak for themselves, but you cannot delay the journey until the chorus of approval begins. Living by this law requires a mindset shift. Instead of asking, will they accept this? You ask, will this move me closer to my purpose? If the answer is yes, you proceed politely, respectfully, but without hesitation. And when fear whispers that you might be overstepping, remind yourself that progress always feels like overstepping to those who have settled. Remember that the greatest advancements in history were made by individuals who moved before the crowd believed it was possible. If they had waited for permission, they would still be waiting, and the world would be poorer for it. You will find that advancing without permission often requires breaking unspoken rules, rules that exist not because they are just, but because they are comfortable for the majority. These are the rules that say don't stand out too much, don't question how things are done, or stay in your lane. But lanes are man-made. They are designed to keep the flow predictable, not to ensure that you reach your potential. If you want to live a predictable, average life, stay in the lane assigned to you. If you want to live the life you were called to live, be willing to step across the lines when your purpose demands it. This does not mean you become reckless. Advancing without permission is not about ignoring wisdom or refusing guidance. It is about refusing paralysis. It is about recognizing that there is a difference between legitimate counsel and disguised discouragement. Legitimate counsel sharpens your strategy. Disguised discouragement weakens your resolve. The former you should welcome, the latter you must dismiss. And here is where discernment returns again, because you will need to know the difference. If advice leads you to clearer, stronger action, it is worth keeping. If it leaves you doubting yourself and stalling your progress, it is worth discarding. Advancing without permission also changes the way you view failure. When you wait for approval before acting, failure feels like an embarrassment. It confirms the doubts of those who warned you to slow down. But when you act from your own conviction, failure becomes a lesson entirely your own. You own the result, good or bad, and that ownership is liberating. You learn faster because you are not waiting for someone else to analyze your mistakes for you. You adapt quicker because you are already in motion, and you recover stronger because you know that the authority to move forward has always belonged to you. So say it again, I advance without permission. Let it be the antidote to hesitation, the cure for the quiet death of waiting. You have one life, and the clock is ticking whether you move or not. Every day spent waiting for the perfect moment is a day spent drifting further from it. Advancement is not about recklessness. It is about refusing to be held hostage by fear, doubt, or the approval of others. Live this law and you will find that the path ahead may not always be easy, but it will always be yours. When you advance without permission, you begin to realize something profound. Most of the barriers you thought were real were never there to begin with. They existed only in your mind, built from years of conditioning, fear, and the quiet suggestions of others who had stopped moving long ago. Once you step forward in defiance of those limits, you see how many of them dissolve the moment you refuse to obey them. This is the truth about momentum. It exposes the illusion of impossibility. You take the first step thinking the road ahead is blocked, and as soon as you're in motion, the obstacles begin to shift, the fog begins to lift, and the route that seemed invisible is revealed. Progress has a way of rewarding the bold, but boldness without endurance is a short-lived victory. Many people have the courage to start, but few have the discipline to continue when the initial excitement fades. Advancement is not one leap. It is a series of steps taken day after day, even when the applause stops and the spotlight shifts elsewhere. This is why so many drift back into the very conditions they fought to escape. They mistake the first breakthrough for the final destination. But the path of purpose is not a single summit. It is a range of mountains, each one higher and more demanding than the last. And the higher you climb, the thinner the air, the fewer the companions, and the greater the temptation to stop. This is where the next law must become your constant companion. Write it down now. I persist until the mission is complete. Say it with weight, because this is not a casual statement. It is a contract. It means that once you commit, quitting is no longer an option you keep in your back pocket. It means you accept the delays, the detours, and the discomfort as part of the process, not as reasons to turn back. Persistence is not stubbornness for its own sake. It is loyalty to your vision. It is the refusal to betray the future you swore to build, no matter how long the road becomes or how rough the terrain feels beneath your feet. Living by this law requires a shift in how you interpret challenges. Most people see resistance as a signal to stop, but the truth is that resistance is proof you are moving in the right direction. Friction only exists when you are pressing forward. The absence of resistance is not always a sign of a good path. It may be a sign that you've stopped moving altogether. When you persist, you develop the ability to see obstacles not as roadblocks, but as refining fires. Every setback strips away what is weak in you. Every delay forces you to sharpen your patience. Every difficulty strengthens the very muscles, mental and physical, that you will need to complete the mission. Understand this. Persistence is not an emotion. You cannot wait until you feel motivated to persist, because motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls with mood, weather, and circumstance. Persistence is a decision, made once and reaffirmed daily, whether or not the emotions cooperate. Some days you will move forward with enthusiasm, other days you will move forward with nothing but grit. Both count. Both keep you in the game. And the truth is, it's often the days when you move forward without feeling ready that define your growth the most. To live this way, you must also master the art of recalibration. Persistence does not mean clinging blindly to a failing method. It means staying loyal to the mission while adjusting the approach as needed. If one strategy fails, you replace it with another. If one route is blocked, you find a detour. If one tool breaks, you forge a new one. The commitment is to the outcome, not to the exact path you first imagined. This is where so many confuse pride with perseverance. They insist on doing it their way, even when their way no longer works. True persistence is humble enough to adapt, yet fierce enough to never retreat. You will find that the deeper you commit to persistence, the quieter your mind becomes. The constant inner debate, should I keep going, should I turn back, fades away, because the decision has already been made. You are no longer negotiating with yourself every time conditions become unfavorable. You are simply executing the plan until the mission is complete. This frees an enormous amount of mental energy, which you can now invest in creative problem solving instead of self-doubt. And the more you persist, the more you build an unshakable self-image, the kind of person who finishes what they start. So repeat the law again. I persist until the mission is complete. Let it become your anchor on the days when you feel the pull of retreat. Let it be the voice in your mind when the winds rise against you. Remember that the mission is not complete until you have delivered on the promise you made to yourself. And when that moment comes, when the mission is truly complete, you will stand in a place that few ever reach, not because you are more talented or lucky, but because you were willing to keep walking long after others had stopped. When you persist until the mission is complete, something extraordinary happens. You begin to trust yourself in a way that is unshakable. You no longer wonder whether you will follow through because you have proven it over and over again. You carry a quiet certainty that whatever challenge lies ahead, you will meet it head-on and finish the work. That trust becomes a force in itself. It calms you when others panic. It steadies you when the path grows steep, and it inspires those who witness your journey, not because you spoke of your intentions, but because you lived them until the very end. This kind of reputation built through completion is rare in a world where most begin far more than they ever finish. But the end of one mission is not the end of the journey. Completion is both a finish line and a starting line. Once you have proven to yourself that you can endure, adapt, and arrive, the question shifts from "can I do it?" to "what will I do next?" This is where your vision must expand. The danger after victory is complacency, the belief that the work is done simply because a chapter has closed. True growth requires that you set a new horizon the moment you reach the old one. The muscles you built through persistence will wither if they are not put to use again. The discipline you forged will dull if it is not sharpened against a new challenge. A completed mission is not a retirement, it is a recalibration. And so the final law emerges, the one that ties together everything we have spoken of. Write it now. I live in perpetual ascent. This law means that you do not climb once and settle. It means that the climb itself is your way of life. It is the refusal to plateau, the decision to continually seek higher ground in skill, in character, in contribution. Perpetual ascent is not about restlessness or dissatisfaction. It is about honoring your potential by refusing to abandon it halfway. It is about recognizing that the purpose of strength is not to boast of it, but to use it to reach higher and then higher still. Living in perpetual ascent requires that you stay a student no matter how much you have mastered. It demands that you protect yourself from the comfort that whispers, "This is enough." Comfort is seductive because it offers the illusion of safety, but safety without growth becomes a prison. You will see this clearly in those who once burned with ambition but now sit quietly in the shadows of their former achievements. They speak of what they once did, but rarely of what they are doing now. This is the fate you must reject. The fire in you is meant to be fed, not remembered. You will also find that perpetual ascent changes your relationship with time in the most liberating way. You stop measuring your life only in years and start measuring it in progress. A year without growth feels incomplete, no matter how easy it was. A year with growth feels abundant, no matter how difficult it was. This shift will set you apart from the majority, because most people seek years of ease rather than years of expansion. But you will understand what they do not, that the harder path walked with purpose leads to a richer life than the easy one ever could. There is a humility in perpetual ascent, because each new level reveals how much more there is to learn. You will never truly arrive, and that is the point. Arrival suggests an end. Ascent has no end, and in the climb you remain alive. Mind sharp, body engaged, spirit awake. You will discover that the real reward of the mission was never the summit itself, but the strength you became along the way. And when you see life through this lens, you stop clinging to the peaks and stop fearing the valleys, because both are necessary parts of the same upward journey. This is why, When you look back years from now, your story will not be one of sudden luck or single moments of greatness. It will be the story of steady, deliberate ascent. It will be the story of someone who refused to stay tired, distracted and doubting. Someone who guarded their mind, chose the essential, acted in alignment with their future self, advanced without permission, persisted until the mission was complete, and then set their sights higher still. That is the kind of life that commands respect, not through force, but through the quiet authority of example. So say the law one final time. I live in perpetual ascent. Let it be the seal on every mission you finish and the spark for every mission you begin. Let it remind you that the summit you stand on today is the foothill of the mountain you will climb tomorrow. And when you rise each morning, let it call you forward not out of fear of falling behind, but out of the deep knowing that you were not made to stand still. You were made to climb.